this the date that the dollar becomes worthless? That is August 22nd, 2023. Is that when all of your investments will be worth absolutely bupkis? What happens on the 22nd of August? Well, that is the date for the 15th BRIC Summit. And no, this is not a summit of day laborers and building contractors discussing their next big multifamily construction job. This is a conference between August 22nd and August 4th, and is a meeting of the biggest power players in Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. BRICS, BRICs, on the agenda of that meeting. Some have reported that a new currency could be announced, a currency that could rival the US dollar in dominance. Why would a currency founded by some of the most unstable members of the international community, why would it be a threat to the dollar? Is the dollar really in trouble? If so, what does the end of the dollar and its dominance mean for you, the everyday investor and general finance enthusiast? If this is the end of the dollar, what could you do instead? Well, we'll talk about all those questions in this video. So let's dive right in. Starting off with that first question. What is the motivation for some of the most unstable international actors to form a new currency? Well, there are three common motivating factors for each of the BRIC nations, and some others as well, to establish a new currency. The first one is to really get around US sanctions. Next up, we have de-dollarization in general. And finally, they want to support the ambitions of the newest global superpower, China. Let's start off with getting around US sanctions. The time frame that we're living in has introduced us to two of the biggest players in the BRIC bloc, Russia and China. Well, they're the ones that are going to have the most problem with sanctions if they continue on the path that they're going down. Many countries around the world, including both Russia and China, they simply don't want to be in a place where their entire economies could be affected negatively thanks to political disagreements with whatever US politician happens to be in office at the time. Now, we're all aware of the conflict in Ukraine that has kicked off sanctions against Russia. One of the biggest sanctions was pushing Russia out of the SWIFT system. SWIFT stands for the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, and it powers most international money and security transfers. The technology and processes that power SWIFT, they enable individuals and businesses to take electronic and card payments, even if the customer or vendor uses a different bank than the payee. Now, it is the most streamlined and widely accepted method for international payments and settlements of other kinds. Other standards are rising, don't get me wrong, including crypto. But for now, SWIFT is the most widely used, and using SWIFT basically makes any international and even local trading and businesses that much easier. So not using it can and does disrupt economies, and being kicked out of SWIFT certainly affected the Russian economy in a bad way. That said, they were able to cobble together an alternative system to keep their economy from completely tanking. But other countries around the world, they see the struggles that Russia had, and they think to themselves, that's not a position that they want to be in, particularly if you have a political dispute or disagreement with hosts of SWIFT such as the US. Now, this plays into a trend that has been building for a little while now, and that is de-dollarization. Other countries that may not have political disputes, large political disputes, with the United States, they may still want to avoid being overly dependent on the US if they believe that the dollar may not be as stable tomorrow as it was in the past. And of course, the recent bout of inflation that has affected not just people in the US, but people who do business in the US and in US dollars across the globe is just one example of why folks may not want to be too dollar dependent. And let's face it, over the last half decade or so, the US has become increasingly unstable politically. And if we continue down that path, the dollar will likely become more unstable as well. And somewhere in the middle of all of this, we need to make sure we discuss China's ambition on the world stage. China, which is now, or it should be at least, considered the US's largest and most powerful geopolitical rival. They, of course, stand to benefit from a switch in a majority of the trade from dollars to some other currency, namely the renminbi, or even this new currency. Something else that's a motivating factor for the creation of a new currency is the fact that China is a major trading partner with each of the BRIC member nations. And most of those other nations don't trade much with one another. So if they get on a common currency, it would encourage trade between BRIC member nations, which kind of takes us to a parallel. Creating a common currency amongst BRIC nations would be similar to creating a common currency amongst European nations. You know, the other currency that's supposed to kill the US dollar, i.e. the euro. Which begs the question, is it all hype? Is the dollar really in trouble from a new currency? The dollar has not always been the centerpiece of international trade, even though the United States has been more or less the biggest economy for the last 120 years or so. Even if a new competitor arises, will the dollar be knocked off its number one perch? Well, history shows that new currencies can be popular at first, and while they may not necessarily fizzle out, they eventually find their niche for the trading block that they're used for. We just talked about the euro. At one point, the euro traded as high as $1.58 versus the dollar. And to this day, it's more valuable than the US dollar, trading around $1.10 at the time of recording. Nevertheless, it never really took off as the global reserve currency. The reason why is that the European Union has much the same structural strengths and weaknesses as the US, making the euro, which is a currency backed by the collective value of the economy it represents, very similar to the US dollar, well, it's just another run-of-the-mill currency being used by the trading partners in Europe. Some argue that the BRIC nations have a different profile than the US and Europe, and that any currency that they could create could be treated as an island of misfit toys, a currency that international bad actors, something that they fall back onto when they're being sanctioned by the US or other major nations when they have major disagreements. Now that is an astute observation. In many ways, any new currency probably would be treated as a way for sanctioned countries to trade with each other without having to rely on US and Western-backed currencies and systems like SWIFT. But that's a double-edged sword. The trade between bad actor countries tends to be sketchy for a reason. They're typically doing something to make trading with them hard in the first place, nakedly subsidizing competitors of private companies. A privately funded company will always have a hard time competing with a publicly funded company for a number of reasons, but namely because the privately held company has to deal with cost pressures such as labor and actually rising inflation and other market pressures, whereas the public company can more or less ignore said pressure because it's always being backstopped by that country's taxpayers and thus the country's currency. And that's just one example of bad acting. There are many others, including invasion of other countries, which is what Russia is currently engaged in, and what China is thinking about doing with Taiwan. Now that begs an important question. If a new currency is formed by BRICs nations to more or less enable China-centric trade with somewhat sketchy trading partners, what would happen to that currency after an invasion of Taiwan? Is this new currency just a way for China to ensure that any sanctions levied on it for invading Taiwan have minimal impact, and that Russia can continue to keep its invasion of Ukraine going until it achieves its political objectives? Those are geopolitical questions that are largely outside of the scope of this channel, but leave your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Now, what is in the scope of this channel is improving your personal finances, which leads us to the next question. What if a new currency, any currency, including this potential one from BRICS nations, what if something like that, what if it wipes out the US dollar's position as the default trading currency of the globe? What should you do? An important part of this new currency that's being considered by the BRICS nations is that it's going to be backed by gold, supposedly. Now, how convertible it is to gold, now that's going to be the question. Even if it's backed by gold, with that little nugget of information, you can make sure that you profit no matter what happens. One easy, or actually not so easy way, to hedge yourself against possible catastrophe would be to invest in some gold. Would I suggest that you go out and convert your 401k into a gold IRA? I wouldn't suggest anything. This channel is for entertainment and informational purposes only. I don't suggest that you do anything like that, but it is something to consider. Now, it is a sophisticated strategy for the BRIC nations to create a currency backed by gold to rival a currency that is not backed by anything but the hot air of bad politicians. That stated, gold-backed currencies have notorious problems, such as convertibility and deflation. A couple quick examples. If you're holding this new currency, and you walk into, let's say, a Brazilian bank, and you ask for the equivalent of your notes in gold, however fractional, will they be able to give it to you? Will they laugh in your face? Will they give you an IOU? You know, the check, or in this case, the gold, it's in the mail, that sort of thing. Remember, this is a currency backed by sketchy kinds of countries with questionable loyalties to the rule of law. Now, that sort of thing is becoming popular globally in this day and age, but nevertheless, will any or even most of the promises that they make be honored when the time is right and when the chips are down? Not to mention deflation. Remember that currencies backed by solid assets, they tend to have issues with deflation. That is, when the economy goes south, the amount of money stays static, but the amount of goods and services, it decreases. Therefore, the amount of money that you can have becomes harder and harder to get, i.e. the money becomes more and more valuable, and the people that need the money have a harder and harder time getting it. That is deflation in a general nutshell, which is the opposite of inflation. Some, including myself, wonder if that isn't a nice problem to have anyway. And if you think about it, the United States more or less had a solid and stable currency when they had both inflation and deflationary pressures applied to it. So it's something to think about. But it is a problem with currencies that are backed by hard assets such as gold, which is what the BRICS countries are suggesting that they are going to back their currency by. One of the things that you can do is to get some precious metals. Just talked about gold, but if you can't get your hands on gold, you might want to get into other commodities. Commodities like silver, rare earth metals, and copper. They're all probably going to continue to rise in value, as not only are they generally useful, but as technology continues to advance, they will continue to provide the physical backbone to enable that advancement. Consider getting some cryptocurrencies. In general, I think cryptocurrencies are way overpriced for the value proposition that they provide. They're not companies that can provide you a dividend check. They're not a commodity that you can smelt down and turn it into something else. Again, for the most part, they're not bonds, a loan that you lend out to somebody, and that somebody that you loaned it out to is paying you interest. They're not derivatives of any asset or security of any kind. Now, there is some nuance to that statement, and it's probably a topic for another video. Like and subscribe. But that is generally true. They're just ones and zeros on a hard drive somewhere, and in my opinion, and in my mind, they should not be much more valuable than standard currencies, and their value might actually be subject to bubble status. And this is coming from somebody who invested in Bitcoin when it was less than $400, and there weren't any exchanges anywhere, and you had to either get it from mining or buying it from somebody who already mined it and watching it rise all the way up to $30,000, actually $60,000. It went back down to $30,000, and now it's going round and round on a roller coaster. However, Having wealth at least diversified into cryptocurrencies gives you the flexibility to be invested in other asset classes, everyone's favorite asset class, the dollar, see an untimely demise. One thing you should definitely get is a business. And this one should go without saying. No matter what currency people are trading with, if you offer them a solid product or an awesome service, they should be willing to part with their currency and give it to you in return for said good product or good service. Having a skill is great, but just having a skill, no matter how lucrative, will forever keep you in employee status. Having a business allows you to scale your talents almost infinitely. And a great way to get started in a business is to find a side hustle, work it until it becomes a main hustle, and make a business out of that. I have a video that should be up on your screen right now. And remember that a goal without a plan is a wish. A goal with a plan and no action is a wish list. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. I'm Derek West, you're watching Finance Squared, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.